these are the two most important months of the offseason for the NFL, in my personal opinion, because free agency's coming up, and of course the big one, the draft, is coming up. And since Omar Khan has become our GM, he has really been cleaning up the mistakes that Kevin Colbert has put us in when he was in his final year as GM for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And to Omar Khan's credit, he did a really good job, or at least he's done a good job so far. But I think this particular offseason is really going to paint a big picture of a kind of GM that he is. And going in, I think the biggest need outside of the entire on the entire offensive line, I should say, is center. And I'm going to get more into it right now. What is going on, everybody? Mac, back with another video. As always, do me a favor, like, comment, subscribe, follow on Instagram, link down in the box below. So it's no secret, Steelers have very, to put it lightly, mediocre offensive line, where they don't block well, they give up a lot of sacks, they don't open up enough lanes for the run game to prolong Najee Harris and Jalen Warren's careers, looking at it in an objective way. But outside of all that, the biggest need that we now have is center. And that's why I want to see the Pittsburgh Steelers go after a center in the first round of the draft. And it begs the question, what does Omar Khan do to fill in that need for this offseason? Does he go out and sign a veteran at center? I don't know. If he does, then I'd be on board with it as long as he's an experienced, savvy veteran. But see, I want youth on this offensive line. We need to get younger. The NFL is becoming a young man's game, and we need youth on this offensive line. Because looking at it, we don't really have a pure center on this offensive line. Nate Herbig is probably the closest one to it, but I'm not really on board with it because he was a guard-center hybrid, and I really don't want any more of these hybrids on the offensive line, whereas I just want a pure center. And for as much as that I like Darnell Washington, with how badly underutilized that he is a great blocking tight end, but that's the thing, we don't use him. I can't really even call him that so much. And when he was our lead blocker for a portion of last season, that's concerning. It just shows you how much that we need a center. And let's face it, man, as Steeler fans, it's no secret that we've been spoiled with QB play with Big Ben all these years. If you're an older Steeler fan, Terry Bradshaw, to an extent Cordell Stewart, to an extent Tommy Maddox. We've been a little bit spoiled at QB. But take a look at the centers that we've had. Just to name a few, Mike Webster back in the 70s, Justin Hartwig back in the 2000s, Marquise Pouncey. The list goes on and on. We've had some really good centers. And I think we've been spoiled with that, seeing now that Mason Cole just was not the guy. I mean, the guy couldn't block. His snaps were very low. His snaps were very bad. He couldn't open up lanes for the run game to go. He was just very inconsistent. He wasn't even a capable starter up in Minnesota, and we grabbed him because he was a veteran. And now he's gone, which actually opens up a little bit more cap space for us, which, yes, that does give me an indication that Omar Khan might go out and get a center. But like I said, I want youth on this offensive line. Because if there's two things that the Steelers have done wrong with the past two off seasons, we passed on two top centers. Creed Humphrey for a tight end, a.k.a. Darnell Washington, that we don't even use. Or we barely use him on this offensive line. And what have I been saying all year last year? Darnell Washington's the sixth man on the O-line? Well, how come he's not being put on the O-line then? We don't use him. And don't even get me started on Tyler Lindenbaum a couple years ago. For those of you guys that know my channel, I've been screaming to the high heavens that I wanted Lindenbaum. He was my number one guy in the 2022 draft that I wanted us to get. And we all know the tragedy with that. Passed on him. Baltimore picked him up. He's a star in Baltimore now. And who did we get instead? Kenny Pickett. Not the guy. Just not the guy. And as I'm looking at the prospects right now, there's three big names. Three big names that stand out to me as far as the O-line goes, particularly at center. There's Cedric Van Pran. There's Zach Frederick. And my guy personally, Jackson Powers Johnson. You want to call him JPJ Jr., considering that we have JPJ at corner with that trade from the Chicago Bears? Go right ahead. But this kid, Jackson Powers Johnson, out of Oregon, he's my guy. He was the best center in college football, and he's widely projected to be the first at the position off the board in the in this year's draft. Unanimous All-American trophy winner, didn't allow a single sack, gave up one pressure in 471 pass blocking opportunities, and led all FBS centers in a pass blocking grade with a 91.3, overall grade of 83.2, and his run blocking grade was an 83.1. There have been a lot of centers drafted in the first round over the last 10 years or so, and this Oregon kid, he could become the next. You know, so Omar Khan, whatever you decide to do with this additional cap space that the Pittsburgh Steelers now have, thanks to Mason Cole being cut, there is no ifs, ands, or buts about this. Because in my opinion, any one of those three centers, you can't go wrong with. But in particular, I want this kid, Jackson Powers Johnson. I want him to be wearing the black and gold. I want him to be lining up under center, protecting whoever we decide to start a quarterback for this season. It's 2022 all over again. Who are we going to start a quarterback? Who's going to be center on the O-line? Is the O-line ready to develop more? You get it. It's kind of similar to the 2022 offseason. My guy personally, I want Jackson Powers Johnson. And let me know what you think down in the comments below. This is Mac checking on out for the day. Have a good one, everybody.